Warren presents Avoiding Warren Jennifer. Season 2, Episode 3. Around 10 o'clock, Warren's guardians got a call from his school principal that he had a dead serious tantrum with his teacher during class today. The principal said that Warren was being naughty and he was trying to hit his own teacher and his counselor. Apparently, what happened was that Warren was getting annoyed by the other kids' rude behavior towards him. Some kids started teasing him and making fun of his looks. This eventually made Warren snap and he grabbed a chair and threatened to throw it at possibly anyone. The teacher tried to make him stop, but then Warren slammed the chair to a kid's nose very hard, causing the kid's nose to bleed. He then smashed the chair at the supplies, making all the crayons, color pencils, and toys to fall on the floor. At that point, Warren was so angry that blood started to run from his nose. This made him started screaming loudly and he started to tear up. The teacher started yelling at Warren. Then suddenly, Warren lost it and pooched the teacher in the face, causing her glasses to break and fall off. Warren then said, "Fuck you," afterwards. All the other kids in the classroom witnessed the whole thing, and some of the kids started to cry because they were afraid of Warren's berserk behavior. After Warren's teacher got herself together, she told the kids to calm down and tried to comfort them. She went to pick up the phone to call security. Because simultaneously, Warren was knocking stuff down and was yelling at all the other kids to shut the fucking hell up, causing another half of kids to cry. Eventually, the security came to take Warren away. It took 1 minute for the security guards to grab him because he was running all over the place and was kicking the kids. After they got him, they sent him to the office and put him in one of the administration rooms where a lady was his counselor. When Warren was locked inside the room so he won't escape, he got mad and started swearing at his counselor. Warren did not like the lady he was in the room with, and he threatened to sock her in the face. The lady counselor told Warren to calm down so he and her can talk, but Warren refused. Warren then got angry and started punching her in every direction he could punch her in. The lady managed to get Warren off him after a minute of struggle, and she took him to the principal office. After the principal notified Warren's guardians about this, Warren was sent home early. When Warren got in the car to go home, he started complaining about how shitty his day was. His dad tried to calm him down, but he was still fussing. When they both got home, Warren got out of the car and ran inside to go to his mom. He went inside his guardian's bedroom and found his mom, Anna, there. Warren sat on her lap and started sobbing about how bad his day was. His mom tried comforting him. Anna asks Warren what happened at school. Warren told her that the kids were teasing him and that they won't leave him alone. After Warren said that, Anna said that he shouldn't be scaring the kids and punching the teacher. Warren looked at Anna's face, got angry, and he socked her in the nose so hard that it made her nose bleed. Warren ran out the room crying hard, went in his bedroom, slammed his bedroom door, locked it, and cried screaming for a long time. The next day after school, Warren's dad took him to an anger management. Warren was still pissed off about what happened, and he got in his car to go to a counselor that might help him. When they got to a place of anger management, they got out of the car and they went room to room to get to a therapist room for Warren to talk to someone. When they walked inside, they saw a lady already sitting there. The therapist introduced herself to Warren and his dad. Warren said nothing. Warren's dad told the lady that Warren has massive anger issues all the time, and that he even had a massive incident like this on his first day of school, and a deadly one with his cousin. He said that Warren is always so angry, that when his face turns red, it takes almost an hour for his face to cool off. He also said that his nose seems to bleed whenever he is feeling so furious. Darius asked if there is any medical tests to figure out his vile reaction to what happens to his nerves. Darius went to take Warren on a medical anger test, and brought him to a room to test and check his steaming nerves inside his body and see what happens when he gets extremely mad. After 5 minutes of Warren getting checked, the therapist came out to explain to Darius about Warren's angerish medical reactions. First off, his blood flow. The therapist explained that whenever Warren gets steamed, his blood from his head and nerves start to pressure very hot, then his blood starts to melt down, which causes his blood to flow down from his nose. She also explained that when blood comes from his nose, the blood is warm due to the hottest steam inside his cells when getting fumed. The therapist then said that all of the blood cells inside him start to cause headaches when he pressures his head into anger, and showing blood signs all over his face. She also said that he will tear up if this goes on for so long. After all that, Warren was taken to an anger management, and was brought to a room. When Warren went inside the room, he saw other kids. The kids were talking as Warren took his seat quietly. After all the kids were all settled down, the manager told all the kids share their anger frustrations and tell what is going on. The lady said that all of the kids were going to take turns expressing their mad problems. After a while, it was then Warren's turn to talk about his anger problems. Warren didn't feel comfortable telling his frustrations in front of the whole kids, he only wanted to talk to the manager about it. Warren said that he fucking hates everybody and even the other kids. The manager told Warren not to say bad words, but Warren said that he doesn't fucking care what she says, and that he would punch a kid in the jaw. The manager told Warren once again to not say bad words, but then Warren got mad and yelled out at everybody to shut the fuck up or he'll fuck them up. The manager strictly told Warren not to swear at her. Warren then got up from his seat, and grabbed his char and smashed it on the lady's face, giving her a bruise. All the other kids in the room froze as they watched the lady get beaten up by Warren, non-stop. The lady managed to grab Warren and get a hold of him, but by then, all the kids were afraid and they started panicking and running out the room. Warren was later picked up to go back home. When Warren got inside the house, Warren tried to open his guardian's bedroom door to get in, but his mom would not let him in because she does not want to get socked in the face again. Warren tried to get her to open the door and was telling her that he was sorry, but it was obvious that it was just an excuse for him to punch her in the nose, and he was lying. The next day, it was open house day, where kids and guardians come to school to walk through open doors and check out the institution of the learning system process. After the school day was over, Warren got ready and he and his guardians got in the car to drive to the school. When they got there, Warren placed one of his hands on the side of one of his eyes, because he did not want to see any of the kids he saw at school. At one point, Warren's dad was talking to the teacher when Warren saw one of his classmates having a little chat with his mom. This made him outraged and he yelled at the kid to fuck off. The kid was confused, but his mom told him he was not doing anything wrong. Warren then got his foot up and stomped on her mom's foot, and he punched the kid right in the face. With an angry look on his face, he stormed out from the classroom. Warren went to the back alley of his classroom and started crying in full frustration and anger. Warren was driven back home after what happened. While Anna was dealing with Warren, Darius went out to go somewhere. When he came back home, he had a box that was full of Wrath dolls. The Wrath dolls were full of some blue liquid substance that was supposed to be depicted as blood, and the blue gooey stuff along with that were depicted as organs. Amazingly, the blue blood and organs were color blue instead of red. Because the company who makes the Wrath dolls did not want to use the color red as the dolls' insides. Afraid that children will be horrified or be influenced by violence of murder, so they use blue so they will not be sued. The Wrath dolls were made for anyone to murder eyes, the dolls to lash out their anger at due to their usual anger problems, and Darius had a feeling it might calm Warren down, at least a little. The organs inside the dolls were fake obviously, and the Wrath dolls were primarily made for kids with massive anger issues. Anyways, Darius gave the box to Warren without saying anything really. When Warren saw the exemplified pictures on the box, he figured out they can be easily slaughtered. When Warren ripped the doll's head off, he saw fake blood and guts exposed from the inside. Warren was satisfied he can lash out his anger using the Wrath dolls, and he went outside to use any dangerous material to kill his enemies, i.e. his Wrath dolls. Warren went outside and got out his first Wrath doll, and left it on the ground before getting out the lawn mower. He figured out how to turn it on by pulling the string. And once it was getting ready, Warren used it to roll it towards the doll, and then the blade slashed the doll into pieces and blood and guts flew all over the place. This satisfied Warren so much that he decided to do more. For the rest of the day, he used many things to destroy the Wrath dolls. Slicing them in half with a kitchen knife. Stomping on them, ripping them apart by their both legs, squashing them with his toy bike, melting them with a heater, and many other stuff he can think of to slaughter them. Warren cannot stand other people, but he can visualize himself standing on them. The next day, Darius found the blue substance everywhere in the house, especially outside their backyard. He was not happy about it and scolded Warren for making a mess. Warren didn't really care and went back to do his thing. Darius ended up cleaning up all of the blue stuff. Darius tried to get Warren to help him, but Warren refused, and started to yell at him violently. Darius got annoyed by his refusal, and pushed him. This made Warren enraged, and he started attacking him by kicking him. Darius had enough and picked up Warren, but Warren kicked Darius in the testicles as he was moving his legs violently. Darius then picked up Warren's other side, but Warren started banging his head on him. When Darius finally got Warren to his room, he just threw him onto the floor and shut the door. He quickly grabbed a chair from the kitchen to block Warren from opening the door, but Warren got out just in time for him to attack. Unfortunately for Warren, he ran too fast, and he smashed himself into the chair's rear and front legs that Darius was holding up. Warren started crying, and he started bleeding. Warren runs back to his room. A while later, Warren comes out to find Darius in the living room eating chips. Warren then got angry and tried to squeeze his testicles. This scared Darius, but he managed to grab Warren's hands and put him in his room. Darius was hoping Warren might calm down in a while, and everything would go back to normal. But this will all turn out to be the beginning. In fact, this time, it would have to do with the death of Jenny. Warren was asleep in his room one night when he had a terrifying nightmare. It started off with him being in a dark forest, and he was just walking around. He then approaches a door, leading him to a dark room. Then, all of a sudden, fire started appearing from every direction. Warren was still in the room, staring at the flames. Then, right in his eyes, stood his late cousin, Jenny. She opened her mouth wide enough for black mist to speed all over his face. Warren was absolutely scared and woke up from his nightmare, and he even thought he heard a woman screaming from his dreams as he slowly became conscious. Warren then stayed up for a long while, and he was terrified and sad at the same time. He even started crying. When it came morning, Warren was sobbing in the bathroom, crying his eyes out. His mom came to him to ask what was the matter. Warren could not say anything at that point, so his mom told him to go to the bathtub to get cleaned before Jenny's funeral. This suddenly triggers Warren and increases his PTSD, prompting him to scream and cry while thinking about the time when he drowned his cousin Jenny. His mom must have thought the same thing without knowing that Warren really drowned her, so she took Warren to take a shower in her bedroom and helped him get washed up. When Warren was done getting washed, he got his clothes on before going to the funeral. When Warren's family got to the funeral, he did not recognize anyone else, but he did see his cousins and his grandparents. Warren even heard a woman crying and sobbing, which turned out to be Vertica. They were all standing there, and strangely, all eyes were on Warren, and this made him nervous. What made Warren confused was that his cousins, Manevly, Veronica, and Brandon avoided him. When they all walked slowly to the funeral house, there laid a coffin with Jenny's dead body in it, right in the far center of the room where everybody can see it. Jenny had a white formal suit worn on her. Her eyes were closed, and her hands were contacted together. Warren was spooked upon seeing her dead body, and he does not even remember what clothing Jenny wore when he drowned her. Not long after, loved ones started talking about Jenny's tribute. When it was Vertica's turn to give homage to Jenny, she said that she and Jenny had good times with each other, and she was glad to have a sister like her. While all this was going on, Warren overheard some people talking about him. After the tribute thing, it was time to go to the cemetery, where everybody will watch Jenny's softened coffin get buried with her inside it. Warren's mom did not want it to be buried too deep, and she also did not want Jenny's grave to be grass-marked, so she watched carefully as the coffin got jacked down. It was planned that Jenny would be buried near one of Warren's other late relatives, Nolan, who died one night from a brain tumor, and he and Jenny had a friendly relationship. Anyways, while this was happening, some of Warren's relatives and cousins were talking to each other while observing what was going on. His cousins still declined to talk with him, and this made Warren confused. After Jenny's coffin was almost getting buried, everybody prayed for Jenny's soul before it was time to go home. Before Warren walked to his family's car, he speedrun to his cousins and asked them why the fuck are they ignoring him. Finally, Veronica told Warren that they heard their mom say that he had something to do with Jenny's death, and that they refused to talk to him because of his cruelty. Manevly spoke up and said that Vertica is saddened by her death, all because of him. Then, Brandon spoke up, saying that he committed, cousin side. Veronica, Manevly, and Brandon all walk off as Warren is left heartbroken by what they have told him. When Warren got home after an hour of driving, he ran to his room and screamed in his pillow before sobbing hard. Warren starts thinking about Jenny, which makes him even more frustrated and more angry. It got worse for him when couldn't even close his eyes to cry, because he thinks he sees a swirly rocking image of her in the darkness. The next day, Warren's mom drove Warren to the park, thinking it would make him happy instead of sad, but Warren was still upset. At this point, he was miserable and wanted to cry alone and wanted to be withdrawn. So, when they got home, his mom made a stuffed toy that looked like Jenny, and gave it to Warren for him to remember her. At first, Warren was still crying, but was glad to have Jenny as a stuffed human toy in tribute to his cousin. But, when he started thinking about the time she accidentally stepped and broke his toy drone, Warren got furious and ripped the stuffed Jenny toy apart by its head. After Warren realized what he had done, he started crying even harder, and was outraged at the same time. He started knocking down his stuff in frustration, and had a tantrum on the floor. Minutes later, Anna found Warren sobbing under his bed, from a bird's eye view, because Warren's legs were visible. Because it was still light outside and the sun was up, Warren had half his body under his bed, crying in the darkness. It got so bad, that later on in the day, he was taken to a psychologist to ease down his departments. The next day, it was time to go to church, which was planned. Anna said that she felt like it was a good choice, because she was already saddened after finding out about the death of Jenny. Anna thought they can pray for her during the church session. Darius was okay with the idea, but he thought it would be totally stupid if they called the church to help Jenny instead of the ambulance and paramedics. Anyways, when they got to the church, Warren was surprised to see his cousins there. Veronica, Manevli, Brandon, Willie, and their mother, Boudica, were there. They were a little late because Willie's mom had trouble getting Willie to go to church, due to his autism problems. When everybody gathered around the church and sat down, the priest encouraged everyone to pray to the Lord, and think about all the blessings that were given. As everyone had their eyes closed and their hands connected together as they prayed, Warren stood there with his eyes open, but he later does the same thing everyone else was doing. After the honor, the priest encouraged everyone to eat some sacramental bread. People were required to eat this to show that they believe in the Lord, and show their thanks to God. It was not really sacramental, as if they were going to die, but it was just a huge thanks. Anyways, everybody took turns to eat the bread. After the honor, the priest encouraged everyone to eat some sacramental bread. People were required to eat this to show that they believe in the Lord, and show their thanks to God. It was not really sacramental, as if they were going to die, but it was just a huge thanks. Anyways, everybody took turns to eat the bread, including families. Boudica and her children went before Warren and his parents. When it was finally the Jennifer family's turn, Warren's parents ate the bread, then they let Warren eat some. But when Warren took a bite of the bread, he spitted it out on the floor, and said that the bread tasted disgusting. Everybody in the church cervix stared at Warren in complete shock, and they were offended by what they were seeing. Warren's mom got his son to stop spitting out the food. This meant that Warren and his parents were sold to the devil, which was a penalty for them after Warren spitted out the sacramental bread. The bread was supposed to be eaten to show an honor to God. And since Warren spitted it out, he and his guardians were seen by everybody, as if they were forbidden from the church service, even though his guardians did not have a problem eating the bread. Warren's mother, Anna, was upset about what happened, and her sister, Vertica, tried to comfort her and said that everything for her family was going to be fine. As for Warren, he was lashed out by his cousins, except Willie, who was sitting on Vertica's lap. Brandon asked Warren what the hell is wrong with him. Warren felt disrespected, and he lashed out at him, Veronica, and Manevli, saying that they are dickholes and they can go to fucking hell and burn. He also told Brandon to shut the fuck up, and that his freckles suck ass. Warren was actually the only one who was not satisfied with the bread. After the church service, Warren and his parents drove home, and Anna was already frustrated. During that night, when Warren and his parents were asleep, Warren was having the most terrifying nightmares anyone could ever imagine, and they were not pretty. Warren had nightmares and visions about demons, splattered blood, flaming fire, blood porn, agony, and he even heard a lot of screaming and crying. Warren even had nightmare visions of demonic babies having their heads spinning non-stop. After Warren woke up from his nightmare, he goes to his parents' bedroom to ask if he can sleep with them tonight. This annoyed Darius, but they both let him sleep in between them on their bed. Unfortunately for Warren, this did not stop him from having creepy nightmares, and for the rest of the night, he and his mommy and daddy had nightmares, and they had a rough sleep. The next morning, Warren and his parents were having a hard time getting themselves together after their terrible night's sleep. After Warren was dropped off at school, he was brought to his classroom. Like usual, Warren misbehaved in school, and he pinched a kid really hard, which landed him to the office. Sometime later during school, he was eating lunch in the cafeteria. His dad bought 3 hamburgers for him, because Warren lied to his guardians, saying that the lunch his school gives is gross and doesn't give out food that is good for him. After Warren was done eating his 3 hamburgers, his stomach started to hurt, and he got up from his chair to go. But when he knew nobody could not see him from a distance, he snuck out so to sneak to the school's south parking lot area, and walked around until he found someone's car. He climbed on the car's bumper, and took a shit all over the window and the car's bumper hood. Was shitting real hard, his nose started to bleed as he was trying hard to push his shit out from his intestines. He then wiped his ass all over the hood of the car. After he was done, he laughed and sneaked away, hoping nobody would spot him. After lunch recess, it was time for his 4th subject. Language arts. The teacher asked the kids what place did they want to go and why. Warren said he wants to go to hell, because there is fire and he thinks it is cool and awesome. The teacher saw this, and she wished she never had Warren as one of her students in the first place. When Warren got home from school, his guardians got letters from his teachers, saying he pooped on vehicles on the district property parking lot. Darius had enough of his attitude at this point, and he just wished that Warren was gone. At one point, Warren asked his dad if he can go to his cousin's house. His dad said no, because it was a school week and he should wait until the weekend. Warren is angered by this, because he really wanted to get into it with his 3 older cousins, so he throws a piece of toy at him, which made Darius mad. He grabs Warren by his shirt, and pinned him hard against the wall. He asks him what is his problem. Before Warren could respond, his stomach started to feel nauseous, and suddenly, blood started pouring from his mouth and his nose. Darius immediately drove Warren to the hospital, because he seemed unconscious at the moment. When he arrives, he brings Warren to a room, and the doctor examines his issue. The doctor says that Warren's blood has increased. When Warren got home, his vision started having trouble, and then, everything from his view was gray. The end.